One day, the company where Chan worked went bankrupt, and facing this, he didn't know what to do. He felt confused, angry, sad, desperate, and overwhelmed with a profound sense of uselessness. At that moment, he tried to call his former boss, but no one picked up. The frustration kept growing within him, and he felt like he was going crazy, wondering why that mama's boy wouldn't answer the phone. He couldn't take it anymore. 6 weeks had passed since then. Currently, Chan was at yet another job interview, but had just been rejected because of his age. After hanging up, he let out a heavy sigh. Even a part-time job was out of reach. More than a month had passed and he was still unemployed. The bills kept piling up and he knew he would be more expensive to keep than a child. He realized that after paying the current month's expenses, he would be completely broke and he still had to deal with the next rent payment. While walking down the street feeling depressed, he passed by a store that caught his attention. It looked much brighter than usual. He wondered if this place had always been there and since when there was a convenience store in that exact spot. As he got closer, he noticed a flyer posted on the door with a message that seemed tailor-made for him. It read, "We are hiring part-time staff, welcoming all genders and ages." Without a second thought, Chan walked in. He went straight to the counter and asked if they were still hiring. The staff member, looking a bit absent-minded, initially said no, seeming somewhat surprised by the question as if she didn't even know about the flyer. A moment later, she regained her composure and confirmed that yes, they were indeed hiring. She explained that she herself was the manager of this place. Chan found it quite intriguing. She looked like a high school student, yet the manager appeared even more nervous than him. She stood up, offered him a drink, and he asked for an espresso. Then she requested his personal introduced himself. Chan, 29 years old, a local young man. When she asked if he had ever worked at a convenience store, he replied yes, he had experience. The manager then said he was perfect for the job. His age and experience were exactly what she had been looking for all along. She mentioned that she was older than him, so she felt more comfortable speaking informally. Chan agreed without hesitation, even though he still found it hard to believe she was older. Right after, she explained that the job required a basic one-year contract. The shifts would be during the night from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., and she would personally cover the rest of the time. Chan thought his sleep schedule would be completely turned upside down. The manager also explained that the salary was 20,001, but before she could finish, Chan hastily said he wanted to work there. She was surprised and asked if he didn't want to know more details. But he was very straightforward. He wanted to start immediately. The manager, excited, suggested they sign the contract right away. He agreed, and once everything was settled, he received his uniform. The manager said the training session would start that very same day. 3 hours later, she was getting ready to leave. She warned him that some suppliers might arrive during the night. Chan asked if that was really the usual delivery time, and she explained that it wasn't always the case, only in emergency situations. She added that he only needed to receive the goods and she would take care of arranging them. The next day, she also warned him about the importance of being careful when dealing with suspicious customers. She wanted to make sure he knew how to handle such situations. Chan confidently replied, saying he was used to dealing with people like that. The manager, satisfied, wished him luck and left. Chan waved goodbye and thought to himself that he finally had a great opportunity. He could pay his rent. Moreover, the salary was excellent, and the manager seemed to be a wonderful person. He felt extremely lucky to have found that job. Full of excitement, he started doing the math. If he worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, his weekly salary would be around $1,001. That meant his monthly salary would range between 6.7 and 8.4 million. In reality, the previously mentioned amount of 20,000 wasn't per month but per hour. He was astounded. Working here for just 1 year would equal the annual salary of a veteran in a large corporation, and with just 1 month of work, he could cover all his expenses. What a relief. He felt that finally his life was back on the right track. But in the midst of these thoughts, the door opened. A customer walked in. Following his training, Chan greeted him with a welcome. The first customer asked where the toothbrushes were. However, Chan froze. He was completely paralyzed. He could hardly believe that this was the first time he was seeing such a thing. Right in front of him was a man with the head of a chihuahua. The chihuahua-headed customer became visibly angry upon realizing that Chan didn't answer his question immediately. In a loud and impatient voice, he demanded to know why Chan didn't tell him where the toothbrushes were right away. Trying to compose himself, Chan replied that they were at the end of the fourth aisle. The customer snorted, saying he should have said that immediately, and walked away, muttering under his breath. While the dog-headed man examined the toothbrushes, Chan observed from a distance, trying to figure out if it was some kind of advanced makeup or an ultra-realistic mask. Maybe it was a special effect. Could they be filming a movie nearby? Everything seemed too real. But before he could draw any conclusions, the man arrived at the counter with just a single item, to Chan's surprise. Left without taking his change. Chan tried to call him back, but the man just grumbled, telling him not to bother and that he could keep the change or do whatever he wanted with it. Then he walked out the door. Alone once again, Chan wondered if that counted as a suspicious customer. He still couldn't accept the incredibly lifelike appearance of that man. Even the barking sound he made sounded too natural. Was this really happening? Shortly after, the next customer appeared, carrying a massive sack filled with coins. It was no exaggeration to say the sack was packed tight. The small customer with a slightly raspy voice handed him a coin and asked if Chan could exchange it. But upon a closer look, he became a bit more cautious about the fact that he was staring intently. Chan froze once more. That creature was a real goblin. He couldn't move, couldn't react. Motionless, he slowly turned to the side, grabbed his phone, and called the manager. On the other end of the line, the manager picked up and asked if there was a problem. Chan took a deep breath and replied bluntly, "There's a goblin in the store." A short while later, the goblin left the store with a wide grin along with the exchanged money. Chan was still in shock. It definitely wasn't a dream, he was certain of that. It was a real goblin, and during the entire time Chan served him, the creature kept staring at him with a strange expression. For 20 minutes, he had counted exactly 145 coins of the 101 denomination and 31 coins of the 501 denomination, a true test of patience. Through the phone, the manager asked if the customer had left. Chan, still tense, replied that he thought he was going crazy. The appearances of the customers were absolutely absurd. First, a man with the head of a chihuahua, who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Then, Goblin forced him to exchange about 30,000 won in coins, but the manager, as calm as ever, said there was nothing weird about that. She explained that since the store was located right in the middle of the city, that particular convenience store branch often received a large number of kobolds, and that was when Chan noticed something strange in what she had just said. He paused and carefully asked, "Manager, did you just say teleportation?" The manager confirmed it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She said that the store possessed teleportation magic to reach customers more efficiently. That left him even more bewildered, and he questioned whether she was truly just a store manager or a mage. She replied naturally that she was both. Chan was stunned. The store had been enchanted with a teleportation spell. The manager herself had cast the spell. That was why the store existed in multiple locations at the same time. Completely speechless, Chan slowly backed toward the door. The manager tried to reassure him, saying she would explain everything in more detail the next day. When Chan opened the door, just a moment ago, his jaw dropped. Outside, the scenery was entirely different from anything he had ever known. There were creatures of various races: angels, goblins, kobold, beasts, orcs, humans, and even robots. He simply couldn't believe his own eyes. The manager, seeing his reaction, joked that he looked almost like someone from another world, and that if it were true, it would be quite funny. But Chan, still in shock, slowly closed the door and replied, "I think I really am from another world. You're right," he explained. That where he came from, there were no other species and no magic. The manager was perplexed and fell silent, trying to process that information. But before they could continue their conversation, they heard loud knocks on the store's glass door. On the other side of the glass, a girl looking very scary was staring intensely inside. Her appearance terrified Chan. She kept banging on the door and persisted. However, a moment later, everything seemed to return to normal. That customer was now inside the store, shopping like anyone else. The manager then revealed that Chan had actually transmigrated to that world. However, even she didn't know how it had happened. While she spoke, Chan tried to hide behind the shelves, cautiously observing every single creature. "Excuse me?" a customer said. He asked the manager how he should handle each type of creature. Right at that moment, a very strange girl started crawling on the store's floor. She was laughing and muttering something incomprehensible. The manager asked what her physical characteristics were. Chan replied that she had horns on her head and bat wings. The manager then said it was just a succubus, and those creatures weren't particularly dangerous, so he didn't need to worry too much. She instructed him to find the curse detector, which was located right under the counter. She said it would be easy to find because it was a very colorful item. Chan went to look for it, still skeptical. He secretly wondered what the manager meant by colorful. That was until he found the object without any difficulty. It was a pink and yellow magic wand, glowing brightly and emitting loud noises. He picked up the object, barely able to believe his eyes, and remarked that he had just stumbled upon a loud and flashy toy. The manager, without any hesitation, confirmed it. That was indeed the curse detector. But Chan, unable to hide his skepticism, asked why such an important item looked so childish. The manager explained that the curse detector was intentionally made colorful. According to her, when someone was afflicted by a curse, they often felt down, sad, and drained. That was why she chose a cheerful design, something that could lift a person's spirits even before the healing process began. But looking at the ridiculously sparkly and pink magic wand, Chan thought it would probably just make anyone more depressed. The manager explained how to use it. He just needed to press it against an exposed area of the customer's skin and push the button. However, right at that moment, the succubus started climbing over the counter in a disturbingly supernatural manner. Desperate, backed away without knowing what to do. He accidentally pressed the button. Some kind of intense energy shot out from the wand, hitting the creature right in the middle of her forehead. The succubus collapsed to the floor, completely unconscious. Chan froze, holding the wand in his hand, as if it were a lethal weapon. The curse detector, having fulfilled its duty, returned to its normal state and began to glow on its small, colorful, heart-shaped gem. Little by little, he calmed down and walked slowly, carefully approaching the fallen succubus, trying to see if she was okay. Seeing her motionless, he feared the worst. He thought he had killed a customer. He immediately called the manager and explained what had happened. She, perfectly calm, asked if the customer had been hit by the detector. Chan confirmed, yes, and hit pretty hard. The manager said everything was fine. That was exactly how it worked. She asked what color the wand's heart was glowing. He replied that it was glowing intensely, almost purple. The manager then instructed him to grab a medicine from the shelf above the chewing gum called homesickness cure. She explained that he only needed to place 2 pills into the customer's mouth and the effect would be immediate. Chan followed the instructions. After a few minutes, the succubus woke up. Still a bit cautious, he kept his distance and asked if she was feeling better. He told her to swallow the pills as they would help her recover faster. She swallowed the pills and her appearance completely changed. To Chan's surprise, she was genuinely beautiful. But the peace didn't last long. Suddenly, she started feeling nauseous and threw up on the floor. She threw up a lot. Afterward, she took a deep breath and said she felt much better. At this point, Chan, losing his patience, told her that if she was done, she could leave the store. She looked at him with a sad expression and told him he was so cold. Nonetheless, she was exhausted. She lay down on the floor right next to her own vomit. Chan couldn't believe it. He wondered if she was being serious. Was she really going to sleep right there? Before he could process it, another customer walked in. Upon seeing the scene, he was surprised and asked what was going on. But Chan, trying to keep his cool, politely replied, "Welcome, how can I help you?" The customer, without further comment, asked if they sold grade 17 blood bags. Then, while the customer was picking up some items from the shelf, Chan called the manager back. He said he would give the succubus more medicine after the new customer left. He also took the opportunity to ask about the blood bags. The manager informed him that the store only sold up to grade 15. Hotter blood bags weren't available. She deduced that the customer might be a vampire, as they were the ones who usually sought out that type of product. She explained that vampires lived very long lives and their physical appearance remained eternally youthful. Therefore, they needed to renew their identification frequently. But sometimes they used expired IDs, which were often marked with an X. When that happened, the store used a magical alarm to verify the authenticity of the documents. A moment later, the vampire approached the counter carrying a basket full of products. Chan informed him that the grade 17 and 18 weren't in stock. The vampire said it was fine. He would just take what he had already selected. However, before paying, he also asked for a pack of cigarettes. Chan asked which brand, but the vampire was vague and kept changing his mind, saying not that one, the other one, maybe this one. This raised suspicion. Chan noticed that the customer's behavior was quite odd. They stared at each other for a few seconds. The vampire started showing signs of nervousness. Filled with doubt, Chan asked to see his ID. The vampire replied that it was currently being renewed and he only had his old expired one. Chan explained that it wasn't a problem. He could still check it, he just needed to verify his age. The vampire became angry, asking why he was making things so complicated, claiming that his friends were waiting outside. Finally, he threw the ID onto the counter and told him to check it quickly. Chan picked up the document and examined it carefully. It looked very similar to the IDs he knew from South Korea, but it had clearly expired. There was a stamp with an X mark on it, confirming that it was no longer valid. But during the process, Chan noticed something strange. He saw a faint glow around the portrait photo on the ID card and felt confused, wondering what it was. Looking closer, he realized there was a tiny sticker placed over the original photo. When he peeled it off, rainbow-like sparks scattered in the air as if they had materialized from thin air, seemingly activated by magic. The light seemed to come alive and started chasing the vampire, who immediately tried to dodge. Chan stood frozen, just watching the vampire run around the store, desperately trying to escape the magical light. Not knowing what to do, the vampire asked what Chan had done, but Chan replied that it wasn't his fault. After all, that ID belonged to the customer himself. After a while, the light finally faded. That was when Chan realized the original photo showed a completely different person. It was obvious that the vampire was using a fake identity to try to buy products as if he were of legal age. Saw this, Chan handed the document back to the vampire and told him that it was illegal due to identity fraud. He even verified with the manager to see if he was right, and she replied yes, adding that she would call the police. Horrified, the vampire snatched the ID card from Chan's hand and ran out of the store. The manager, surprised, asked if he had really run away, and Chan confirmed he had. Afterward, as Chan was reorganizing the shelves for the first time, he remarked that just as he had suspected, that customer was indeed pretending to be someone else. The manager was astonished because she hadn't heard any alarms. Chan explained that the customer had given him a fake ID with a magical sticker placed on top. This sticker created an illusion to fool anyone looking at the document. The manager then asked if Chan had noticed this with his naked eye, and he confirmed yes, he had seen something similar before. However, she grew suspicious because in that world, IDs were extremely well protected by a magical security system. According to her, forging a document was incredibly difficult, and anyone who managed to do it had to be highly skilled. Those who used illusion magic for that kind of crime were professionals, and usually it was impossible to detect with the naked eye. Despite that, Chan had actually succeeded in spotting the trick. He explained that the vampire looked visibly nervous, which caught his attention. Moreover, the sticker had been applied quite sloppily. Nevertheless, the manager found it very impressive. She then suggested that perhaps it was time to terminate Chan's temporary employment contract. He was shocked, not understanding why, and thought he had done something wrong. But the managers explained that in fact he was doing a great job. The problem lay elsewhere. Chan was a person from another world, and she was worried that something bad might happen to him because of that. Despite this, Chan said he was fine. None of this was too scary for him, and he genuinely wanted to continue working there. After all, if he lost his job, he wouldn't be able to pay his bills and would eventually end up living on the streets. The manager fell silent for a moment, which made him wonder if he had said something wrong, but right after she agreed, saying he could stay but warned him not to complain later. Chan remarked that she was yelling too, but asked her for a favor, that she would continue supporting him over the phone. The manager replied yes, since she had already planned on doing that. She then asked if he was going to give the succubus the medicine, and he confirmed. He sprinkled a bit of magical powder straight into her mouth while she was still sleeping soundly, looking just like an angel. Right after, he informed the manager over the phone that he had given her the medicine. But so far, there was no reaction. The manager explained that she would soon return to normal, but might feel nauseous and might even throw up again. She also asked if he thought the succubus looked dizzy or disoriented. Chan replied that she didn't seem to be. The manager then suggested he check if there were any curses left on her using the curse detector. He followed the instructions, but the wand didn't glow or make any sounds. Chan asked if that meant she wasn't well, but the manager explained that it wasn't exactly like that. The succubus's condition was a bit special. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed outside. Chan flinched, wondering if a meteor was falling from the sky. He ran to the store's doors, uttered to surprise, found an actual wall made of boxes. He was confused by the sheer number of parcels. That was when a voice spoke up announcing that the delivery had arrived. A woman riding on a Pegasus appeared from behind the boxes. She looked at him and said he was the new temp worker her sister had mentioned, and it was a pleasure to meet him. Chan, still dumbfounded, asked for a moment and called the manager. He said that a woman riding a Pegasus had just arrived with a pile of boxes and asked if that was the legitimate delivery she had mentioned earlier. The manager confirmed that yes, that was Yunha, the person in charge of the day's deliveries. Yunha then officially introduced herself and said that now that they were properly acquainted, he could step aside. Chan agreed and began opening the store's doors. Meanwhile, she handed a receipt to Chan for him to sign, but he was confused by the writing and asked the manager how to fill it out, since he still wasn't familiar with the language of that world. The manager replied that she would sort it out with Yuna later, and for now he just needed to sign. Chan then wanted to know what items had arrived. The manager explained that the delivered items included drinks, snacks, and dragon scales, which were hard to find, but Yuna had managed to get them. Right then, she stopped to ask if there were any dragons in Chan's world. After hearing his confirmation, she concluded that it made sense since there were no magical species there. She then remarked that his world was very backward, pausing for a second. This remark irritated Chan. He asked her not to say things like that. While they were talking, the succubus began to wake up. Chan realized that she had finally regained consciousness and got ready to ring her up. But as she felt well again, she asked an unexpected question. She wanted to know what love was. Chan thought she had completely lost her mind and decided to call a taxi. Shortly after, with the taxi pulled up right in front of the store, Chan helped the succubus inside. She was still a bit sleepy. He handed her the card and the receipt, but could barely hold them. The taxi driver asked if she was drunk, and Chan explained that she wasn't. She had just taken some medicine and was therefore a bit dizzy. He asked him to take her home safely. However, before they drove off, the succubus asked once more what love was. She said that even after thinking about it, love remained a mystery to her. Chan thought for a moment and replied that love was something people yearned for but couldn't have. The two stared at each other for a second, very close. Embarrassed, Chan corrected himself and told her to forget what he had just said. They left right after, leaving Chan exhausted and hoping that he wouldn't encounter that customer again. Ultimately, he believed he would finally get some peace and quiet, but that didn't last long. Yunha suddenly appeared, almost breaking the door. Chan was startled and wanted to know what was going on. In a rush, Yunha said she needed to tell the manager that she was returning the dragon scales because there was an issue with them. Later, while reorganizing the shelves, Chan noticed that Yunha and the manager had been talking for quite a while. He began to wonder if the problem was more serious than it seemed. It even reminded him of the time he worked a part-time serving job where people argued all the time in the restaurant. He figured that in this kind of situation, all a part-time worker could do was observe in silence and let the higher-ups handle it. That was when Yunha approached, holding a phone that was currently showing the manager on a video call. She wanted to speak with Chan and asked him to inspect the dragon scales alongside Yunha. He refused, wanting to know why it fell to him. Despite that, he walked in through the warehouse door. As soon as he passed through it, he was met with giant stairs, exactly like those in a dungeon. He found it all very bizarre and wondered if he was still inside a simple convenience store. This place looked more like a torture chamber. Yunha, seeing his reaction, asked if this was his first time in a place like that. Chan replied. Yunha nodded, saying she was also surprised at first, but Chan would quickly get used to it. After all, her sister, the manager, had a rather eccentric taste. Hearing this, the manager replied that it was nobody's business, but Yuna insisted it was truly bizarre. As they reached the end of the hallway, they entered a room filled with boxes. Yuna decided to go in first since the place was quite dirty. Meanwhile, Chan called the manager to report that he was in the warehouse and asked exactly what he had to do. The manager replied that he just needed to follow her instructions because she already had a plan. The moment Yunha turned on the lights, a disgusting sight was revealed. Piles of slime were scattered across the floor and ceiling, seemingly oozing from the dragon scales. Chan was clearly disgusted. The manager noted that it looked like dragon scale pus, an accumulation of corrupted magic. She explained that if the purification process of the dragon scale was done poorly, something like this would happen. Still confused, Chan pointed at a structure resembling a turtle shell and asked if it was really a dragon scale. Yunha confirmed it. She mentioned she had taken advantage of a low demand period to buy a large quantity because the price was very cheap. But now, she realized the cheap price came with trouble, the imperfection in purification, even at the end of the day. Therefore, she figured that if they cleared the surrounding pus, these scales would still be usable. The problem was that the purification company had already closed, and at that moment, the clock had struck 3:12 a.m. The manager said that was exactly why she called Chan. She asked if he could quickly touch the pus. In that instant, he began to rethink every decision he had ever made in his life. Yunha scooped up a little slime and offered it for him to touch. The manager advised him that it wouldn't bite and said she trusted him, but Chan fearfully replied that he might catch a disease. To persuade him, the manager offered a bonus of 100,000 won if he agreed. Faced with the offer, Chan accepted. Trembling in fear, he stepped forward, thinking of the money. But surprisingly, the slime retreated. Away he tried again, and the slime backed away once more. He asked if it was alive, but the manager explained that it was just an accumulation of magic. Nevertheless, Yunha also agreed that it seemed to be avoiding Chan. Even though she told him to ignore it and just touch it, Chan gathered his courage, stepped forward, and touched the slime. Instantly, a brilliant magical light filled the room. Everyone was amazed. The pus was purified immediately. Yuna remarked that this happened exactly as her sisters had predicted. However, the manager said it was too early to celebrate. She asked Chan to use a curse-detecting wand on the spot. He complied, but the wand didn't glow or emit any sound. The manager explained that this was excellent. It meant the purification was done properly, and then she revealed her suspicion. Chan possessed magic resistance. Yunha summarized that, simply put, magic had no effect on his body. The manager said she wanted to have a serious talk with Chan. She asked if he remembered earlier when they checked his body and a loud noise went off. She explained that such a reaction only occurred in two scenarios. The first was when a person had absolutely no magic in their body, which in this world would be extremely dangerous. However, since Chan came from another world, that possibility was low. Therefore, the second theory seemed more plausible. His body had natural resistance to magic. That was why she asked him to check the dragon scales. She told him she would explain everything in more detail when they returned to the store. Meanwhile, Chan was bewildered, excusing himself, trying to digest it all. To him, it felt like living in a story similar to Percy. Yax, discovering he was a demigod. Suddenly, Yuna stepped forward with her hands raised, so forcefully that she cracked the adjacent wall, wearing a slightly forced smile. She asked him for a favor. She wanted his help purifying the scales. When Chan asked if he had to purify all of them, she replied, yes, because she believed he had the ability to do so. Meanwhile, the manager was looking at him with pleading eyes. Even Yunha joined in, making the exact same pleading expression. Chan realized he was cornered. He figured he was doomed and gave in, saying he would do it, but only with direct guidance. The manager thanked him and said the method was very simple. Yuna pointed at a hole in the wall and explained he just needed to stick his hand in it. But Chan backed away, saying it looked very dangerous. No matter how much Yunha pleaded, he still said he lacked the courage. The manager then promised an extra generous bonus if he agreed to do it. Instantly, Chan changed his mind. He thought about the money he would receive and agreed to do it for the bonus. Feeling disgusted, he walked over to the hole and reached his hand inside. It was indeed much deeper than it appeared. Yunha checked in on him again, asking if he was okay, and he replied yes. But he felt something sucking on his arm as she tried to pull him back. A magical light began to spread. The purification process was working. Little by little, all the pus began to disappear. After a while, the scales were completely clean, and the entire room was free of any slime. Chan regained his composure and remarked that everything was so chaotic. He thought to himself that all this happened on his very first day of work. Yunha then asked him to move aside as he had fallen on top of her without realizing it. He apologized and asked if she was okay. She replied yes and asked how the scales were. Chan grabbed the curse-detecting one and checked. There was no reaction at all. Yunha felt relieved, stating that the purification of the scales was flawlessly completed and thanked him profoundly. She said thanks to him, they had avoided a massive loss for the stores. Yunha's Pegasus also praised Chan, saying he did a great job, that this kind of trouble wouldn't happen again. When Chan asked if she didn't come every day, she explained that handling magical deliveries was very complicated. She also told him not to be too formal with her, since she was younger than him. Meanwhile, the manager bid goodbye, observing the conversation from afar with a satisfied smile. Before leaving, Yunha put on her glasses, waved goodbye, and mounted her Pegasus. As she looked up at the sky, he saw dawn had started to break. Right after, another customer appeared in the store. She seemed in a hurry and said she needed to catch a bus. She paid quickly, didn't even bother to take her change, and dashed off with her item. Soon after, a long line of extremely bizarre customers began to form. Several hours later, Chan was exhausted. All he wanted was to lie down and take an endless sleep. That was when the manager sent him a message asking if he was sleepy. He lied, saying he was still fine. She said she was on her way to pay his salary, but wanted to know if he was really okay, since she figured he was exhausted after such a stressful night. Just then, the door chime rang if someone had just walked in. Chan looked around but saw no one. He thought the person had quietly slipped out. He continued checking his phone until he realized someone was calling him. Looking again, he spotted a very small girl. She politely asked if he had colored paper. She also wanted to buy scissors and some other school supplies. Chan replied yes, but explained that those items were on a very high shelf. He intended to help, but she insisted she could reach them herself. Chan stood watching curiously. He thought this child was very smart, albeit quite pale, almost albino. Oddly, he even noticed she looked somewhat muscular. She tried to reach for the items but couldn't and began to cry. Chan rushed over, grabbed the colored paper and scissors, and handed them to her carefully. She thanked him, politely calling him Uncle. Chan still wondered whether she came from some reptilian race. Joking to himself, he thought if she got angry and spat out some fire, dragon fire, she could burn the whole store down. But then she looked at the scissors and said she couldn't afford them because she only had 5,000 won. That wasn't enough. Chan saw she was only short 101 for the scissors. He offered to cover the missing amount, but she firmly refused. She said her mother taught her never to accept money from strangers. Curious, Chan asked what she needed those for. She explained that Mother's Day was coming, and she wanted to make a beautiful gift. She had just learned about this holiday in kindergarten, and since she always received gifts from her mom on Children's Day, she thought it was only fair to give one back now. She touched Chan's heart. He suggested she do origami instead of cutting paper, but she said that was exactly the problem. Her hands weren't normal. She showed her sharp claws, explaining that with just a little force, she would tear the paper apart. Chan suddenly understood. With those claws, doing origami was practically impossible. Even if he bought the scissors for her, she wouldn't accept them, and since this was a surprise gift for her mom, she couldn't ask anyone directly for help. That was when Chan came up with an idea. He decided to lend her the scissors. He pulled out a piece of paper decorated with flowers and explained she could cut and paste the colored paper onto it. She joyfully thanked him. While she diligently worked, he stood watching in silence. He thought this had become something special. Perhaps if he needed to step out for a moment, she would still be there. But he also felt leaving such a small child alone for too long was very dangerous. He guessed she must live nearby. Chan knew the manager would show up soon and wondered what she would say upon seeing them. Just then, the girl ran over to a shelf, grabbed a chocolate bar, and asked how much it cost. Chan replied, 2001, and she wanted to buy it. He scanned the item. She paid in full, and he told her she could eat it right away. To Chan's surprise, she broke the chocolate bar in half and offered him a piece. She said they could eat while working. He declined, saying the candy was hers, and since she was younger, she should keep the bigger share. But she argued that he was an adult, so he had to eat more, even though her mom once warned that eating too much chocolate would make her teeth fall out. Chan silently wondered if his teeth would suffer the same fate, but ultimately he surrendered. She insisted so much that he couldn't refuse. They both ate, sharing that small, peaceful moment. Just then, the manager arrived, wished them a good morning, and noted that he must be exhausted. With a mouthful of chocolate, Chan became nervous upon seeing her and stammered a clumsy good morning. She immediately asked who the girl was. Chan hurriedly explained that he had lent her the scissors because she didn't have enough money to buy them, and he figured doing so would be faster. But she was taking much longer than expected. The manager understood the situation. She remarked that the child seemed shy, which Chan considered normal at that age. But then the manager revealed a surprising fact. That little girl was actually a dragon, a purebred dragon, she explained. The dragons took 3 years to grow in their eggs before being born. During that time, along with their bodies, a special organ would develop. That was the horn. This horn acted as a multi-purpose detector. The issue was that young dragons found it very hard to control it. They saw human magic in the form of colors but lacked the experience to distinguish what was dangerous from what was harmless. Was why they shouldn't rely solely on their horns to judge someone's character. That had to be learned through life experience. For this reason, dragon parents were extremely protective of their children, especially purebred dragons, which were incredibly rare. Just then, the little dragon girl cheerfully appeared, saying she had finished making the flower. The manager praised her artwork, but she hid behind Chan, making the manager feel a bit disheartened. She squatted down and gently explained that Chan needed to go home and rest because he had worked all night. She asked if the girl could come back another day. The dragon girl looked at Chan. He smiled and said he would keep what she had made and she could return whenever she wanted. She asked if that was really true, and the manager confirmed, saying she would always be welcome. She profusely thanked them, calling Chan uncle and the manager aunt. The manager acted indignant again and told the girl to call her sister instead of aunt. Once again, noticing her awkwardness, Chan figured it was best not to bring up age in front of his boss. The dragon girl said goodbye and left. As soon as she was gone, the manager locked the door. She stated it was time to prepare everything so Chan could go home to rest. She asked him to fetch an item from the cabinet, pointing at a door ahead. Still puzzled, Chan went to the designated spot and damn, he found a desktop globe, the kind with a world map. He looked at it, wondering what he was supposed to do with this globe. The manager then explained it wasn't just for decoration. It was a teleportation machine. Thanks to it, the store could move to various places. Chan was deeply impressed by what he was seeing. The manager explained that the teleportation machine was her own creation, a one-of-a-kind item belonging to the store. She warned him that although she had set limits on the teleportation areas, if it was misused, it could send someone to a completely random place. Chan said he would keep that in mind, but she assured him the operation was very simple. All he had to do was type the desired address on the machine's screen. Somewhat hesitantly, Chan began typing. The manager cautioned him that if she typed it herself, the destination might fail, because they could end up in a world entirely different from his. Chan immediately asked how she had managed before. She explained that the most crucial thing for successful teleportation was having clear information and strong willpower. If a person didn't truly desire to go somewhere, the teleportation would fail. Since she knew nothing about Chan's world, doing it herself would be useless. That was why he had to operate the machine. However, Chan remembered the manager once said magic had no effect on his body, so he asked if it would work, but she told him to trust her as she was certain it would. Seeing her so confident, Chan felt slightly reassured and decided to give it a try. He typed the address and focused. The manager explained he needed to use his willpower to return home. He had to think intensely about it. It could be a happy or sad memory as long as it was strong enough. He then thought of his world. Even though it was cruel and he had been betrayed by the company he worked for, it was still the place where he had experienced happy moments. He recalled childhood games and realized the irony of how that conflict-ridden place was still what he called home. When he opened his eyes, the manager said he could step outside and see the results for himself. Opening the store's door, he was stunned. He recognized the neighborhood immediately. He was back in South Korea. It was real. He had been teleported from one world to another in the blink of an eye. The manager observed his reaction and noted that now she was certain of one thing. Chan had the ability to control his own magic-resistant constitution. When he purified the scales the other day, he was intensely focused on the desire to succeed. If magic truly didn't affect him at all, he wouldn't have been able to do it. But he had been sad, and that proved his thoughts directly influenced magic's effectiveness. Shocked, Chan asked if she genuinely made him handle that disgusting pus based merely on a theory. The manager walked over and nonchalantly replied that yes, she did, and she added that after all that experience proved he could control his magic resistance whenever he wanted. Perhaps that was exactly why he found the store in the first place. Because he truly wanted a job, the store appeared, she said. She still needed to observe him for a while longer. Then she handed him his wages for that workday and a bottle of sleeping pills so he could rest. And so Chan returned home to his small apartment. As he entered, he tiredly thought that he was back to this life again. He was home. He remembered he had to work in the evening. He decided to set an alarm, but as he looked at the bottle of pills, he thought his boss was quite thoughtful to prepare them for him. Still, he wondered if she was a good friend. Would the medicine actually work? He concluded that since it was made by his boss, it probably would. The only problem was, if he slept too soundly, he might not hear the alarm. Therefore, he decided to take just a single drop of the potion. When he opened his eyes, it was dark. He woke up exactly one day after his first time the alarm rang. It actually worked, and it was quite potent. Stretching lazily, Chan set off to the store, satisfied with a good sleep. He still wondered if the store would really be there while sitting in the car. Arriving to his surprise, it was still there, exactly in the same spot. Now he was certain this wasn't a dream, but he kept wondering why only he could see this store. Just then he noticed customer side. It was a bald, shiny-headed guy trying to haggle with the manager. That man was demanding to return the empty water bottle he had bought for a discount. The manager was visibly annoyed and refused outright. The man was actually an albino goblin. He even asked if he could drink inside the store. Witnessing that scene, Chan wished it was all just a dream. The manager firmly reiterated that drinking in the convenience store was prohibited. The law is the law. The man complained that the rule seemed a bit weird, but she explained that by law, convenience stores were classified as restaurants, and for that reason, drinking outside was also banned. He would have to buy it and take it home to drink. The manager was surprised to see Chan and asked when he arrived. He replied he had just got there. Still, she wanted to know why he came earlier than usual. Before he could answer, the bald customer started scolding him, asking who he thought he was to interrupt them. Chan explained that he was a store employee, but the man grew even more annoyed, saying that even if he was just an employee, he still had the audacity to talk to a customer like that. He accused Chan of looking down on him because he was a goblin. Confused, Chan asked where he got that idea from. Goblin started yelling, claiming it was discrimination. He rolled on the floor, throwing a tantrum, and screamed that he was being despised, that it was racism, that he was deeply hurt. Completely unsure of what to do, Chan calmly asked him to stop, telling him that such behavior was very dangerous. Meanwhile, the manager had lost all her patience, standing behind the counter, wishing she could disappear. Unable to take it anymore, she pressed the emergency button to call the police. A moment later, the police arrived. The bald goblin was being escorted away by a female officer who was also a goblin. She wanted to confirm what happened and asked if it was true that he refused to pay the full price for the water and threw a fit pretending to be discriminated against. The manager confirmed it and said she had proof, adding that she could show the security footage. As the officer went into the security room, she said she would check it herself. The moment she stepped inside, Chan remarked that the goblins in this world were very different from the goblins he knew. The manager curiously asked how they were portrayed in his world. Chan explained that to him, goblins were always beautiful beings, full of magic, majestic, and noble. He always considered them superior entities. The manager agreed, stating they actually used to be like that, but that was before the war. Then she began to explain what had happened in that world. Decades ago, science advanced exponentially. Many artifacts and technologies were created to make life easier for all creatures. This progress was for humans, and many other races embraced this new era of convenience and development. However, this progress required building numerous cities, destroying vast natural areas. The goblins, who lived in harmony with nature, couldn't accept the destruction of their homeland. They rejected human progress. From there, a war broke out. The manager explained that goblins were always deeply connected to nature, so they couldn't let it be ruined. They started rebelling, destroying factories and cities. The other races had to choose a side, following humans in scientific advancement or standing with the goblins to protect nature. Ultimately, the majority chose to support humanity. Still, the goblins' numbers were so massive that the war dragged on for a long period. After many battles and losses, a peace treaty was finally We'll see you again in the next episode. Established, but the aftermath was incredibly severe. The populations of both humans and goblins plummeted significantly. Since then, the surviving goblins had to endure terrible discriminations. Even though this situation has eased recently, it remained a harsh reality. The manager noted that perhaps even the female goblin officer had to fight immensely to secure such a position. For this reason, she had instructed Chan to treat goblin customers well. He asked if even those who behaved like that man deserved to be treated Like that, the manager replied no, scum like him didn't deserve it. If they yelled or insulted him, he could just kick them out without feeling guilty. Chan then remarked it was time for her to take a rest, since she had overworked herself. The manager replied she would leave as soon as the officer came back. Right then, the officer emerged and said she had checked everything thoroughly. The manager announced she was also about to head home and they could talk on the way. As the two departed, Chan took over the store. The manager still waved goodbye and asked him to call her if anything happened, while the officer thanked him for cooperating. Chan replied politely, saying he was the one who should be thankful. Shortly after, he slumped his head on the checkout counter, utterly exhausted. He thought to himself how tired he was, and this was only the second day of work. He would still have to get used to this new routine. Just then, a new customer walked into the store. A chihuahua-headed guy. He asked why Chan was slumping his head instead of greeting him. Sighing internally, Chan sadly thought this was yet another customer he wanted to kick out, but he braced himself and asked if the guy was looking for anything specific. He replied he wanted to buy toothpaste. Chan immediately said it was in the same spot as yesterday next to the toothbrushes. The chihuahua guy looked at Chan suspiciously and asked why he spoke like that, as if working lazily. He demanded a proper explanation. Chan calmly stood up and said he would show him the way to the items. The chihuahua guy remarked if that wasn't much better. Then Chan led him to the shelf and pointed at the discounted toothpaste. Upon arriving, the chihuahua guy asked which one was the best. Not knowing how to answer the chihuahua guy, Chan said he didn't know. The customer flew into a rage, questioning how an employee here wouldn't know such a simple thing. Chan thought this customer was too bossy but still tried to keep his cool, looking closer at one of the boxes. He noticed there was a promotion, buy two get one free. He pointed at it, trying to help. The chihuahua guy replied he didn't need two boxes, but Chan explained he would still benefit from taking the deal. The customer pondered for a moment and decided to grab that box anyway. Chan rang up the items at the counter and handed him a bag. Right at that moment, Chihuahua also grabbed a piece of candy. Saying that he would take it, Chan pointed out that the candy was also on promotion. Buy one get one free, he suggested, taking another one, but Chihuahua complained about a $1 loss. That he didn't want it and told Chan he could keep the other one. He handed over the money and left, saying he had to go. Chan surprisingly asked if he could really keep the candy. The customer said yes, that he didn't care and told him to just take it. Watching him leave, Chan thought it was quite a kind gesture, even though it was done in a aggressive manner. He also realized that Chihuahua probably worked nearby and would therefore be a regular customer. Sighing, he braced himself to face this new reality. Right after that, another customer walked into the store. Surprisingly, it was the succubus. From the other day, he felt a bit nervous upon seeing her. She seemed calmer and jokingly asked if they sold resignation forms. Still cautious, Chan immediately called the manager, informing her that the succubus had returned. The manager asked how she looked, and Chan replied that she looked like she had drank a bit, but was not aggressive. She seemed much better than last time. Even so, the manager suggested he use the curse detector to confirm her condition. Chan agreed, though still reluctant. He wondered if he really should do it, afraid she would go crazy again, but then he remembered the bonus and the thought of money convinced him. He carefully acted like a and politely explained that in order to stay in the store, you might, someone need to check her condition. He asked if she agreed and she said yes. Chan thanked her for her understanding. Before he could do anything, she took the initiative and said she felt ashamed of what happened. The other day she apologized. Chan asked if she was referring to the time she threw up, and she became even more embarrassed, asking him not to bring it up. She said she had completely lost control at that time because she had drank too much. Even so, she didn't try to justify herself. She just wanted to apologize. She explained that work stress was part of the reason. Curious, Chan asked what kind of work could put her under so much pressure. The succubus replied that she worked at a pharmaceutical company and currently she was involved in developing a love potion. Chan found it strange, thinking that this kind of potion was something for mages, but she explained that when it comes to love potions situations, succubi are the experts because they are innately seductive and attractive due to their nature being tied to love. They are the most suitable for that kind of work. She told him that many succubi had similar jobs, some working in pharmaceutical companies, others working as psychiatrists because they usually handle emotional and romantic issues well. Even so, she admitted she was doing terribly at her job. Once again, she apologized for how she had acted the other day. Chan thought that succubi in this world were very different from what he had imagined. And in fact, they seemed to be good people. Even so, he still asked why she would think about resigning if the job seemed so suitable for her. She replied that she had never dated anyone in her life. She didn't know what love was. How could she develop a potion based on something she didn't understand? Shocked, Chan asked if she, as a succubus, had really never been in any relationship. Explained that she had always very focused on her studies and never had time for love. She said she had a lonely life, and because of that didn't know what love meant, and this made her job even more difficult. Then she asked what love was, but quickly concluded that perhaps it wasn't a question that could be answered with words. She said the job no longer meant anything to her, and she had decided, but Chan realized this was a major issue and saw how distressed she was about the situation. He tried to comfort her, saying that everyone struggles with their first job, and this shouldn't be seen as a bad thing, but rather as a life experience. The succubus revealed that in fact she came to the store because she remembered something Chan had said that day in the taxi. He had said, "Love is something we want but cannot have," Chan explained. That he just blurted it out, without much meaning behind it. Even so, she said she She was impressed by those words. She explained she was used to hearing that love is easy, fun, or painful, but she had never heard such a unique and complex definition. Then looking at him in a sincere way, she asked, "Do you know what love is? What do you think love is?" Chan began to feel dazzled. By the soft light radiating from the succubus presence, he felt nervous, but he was honest. He said he didn't understand much about love, and to be honest, he had never dated anyone. She was surprised. Asked why, he replied that the answer was clearly written on his face. He said, he looked really boring. Kept silent for a moment, just staring at each other. Until Chan turned away, secretly that the customer would give up the conversation and leave. He began to feel uncomfortable, but to his surprise, right after that, she appeared holding a notebook and a pen. She said she wanted to interview him for something simple and confidential. She assured him that whatever was shared there would stay there. It was just answering a few questions. Chan thought that perhaps he was the most suitable person for it. He was 29 years old and had never had a lover that made her embarrassed. So he tried to change the subject. He suggested that instead of interviewing others, perhaps she should try getting into a real relationship herself. He admitted feeling a bit ashamed saying that. But he commented that with her looks and personality, she could easily find someone. He asked if she had ever been in such a situation. She replied yes, she had chances, but always ran away because she felt scared. She explained that she had dedicated a lot to studying to get that job at the pharmaceutical company, and she had read many books, talked to many people, and they all said love is something wonderful yet intangible. Everyone, varying from person to person, she confessed. She often wondered and worried, what if true love was different from what she expected? That thought scared her. That was why she always chose to run away. She found it ironic how sad it was that a succubus was afraid of love. Chan says he didn't think it was weird. In fact, he believed that people are always afraid of what they cannot see or understand, and that includes feelings, love. Especially, to him, is the most difficult and complex emotion of all. And since her work is tied to love, perhaps the best way is to face it more lightly. She didn't immediately understand what he meant by facing it more lightly, so Chan explained. He said that to her, love is something grand and untouchable, but he thought differently. He explained that, even having never dated, he still observed what happened around him. For example, he has a very close friend who is now married. Previously, when he was still dating, everything was new, exciting, full of love, anxiety, and expectations. But after getting married, the relationship changed. The two started arguing frequently, facing many problems. That friend even once said he regretted getting married because the relationship had completely changed. The succubus commented that perhaps the friend was just too different from his partner. Chan agreed. He thought so too. His friend used to say he missed the time when everything was still new, when they were just starting to get to know each other. Chan concluded that by observing this, he realized love is always changing depending on the situation, and if something changes that much, perhaps it's not the grand, untouchable thing everyone still thinks. To him, love is a mixture of many emotions, and because of that, it should be approached more lightly. Even so, he warned that love could also be dangerous. When she asked what he meant by that, that there are two dangerous types of emotions tied to love. First is unrequited love, when someone loves a person too much who doesn't return the feeling. The second type is obsessive love, like cases where people develop an obsession with someone who doesn't even know they exist. He said those situations are not at all dangerous. Dangerous for the other person, but for the one in love, because when feelings are not returned, it can cause immense pain. Then, he emphasized that in his view, love should only exist when it comes from both sides. There must be mutuality, otherwise it cannot be called love. He advised her to be careful with those types of unbalanced emotions. While listening to everything, the succubus took notes, thinking that perhaps she would never be able to enter a real relationship because she saw herself as a frustrated and confused person. But Chan said she definitely could. He told her she was a very attractive person, and even though it sounded rude to say, he believed if she asked any man out, it would be very hard for anyone to refuse. That was when he realized what he had just said and got flustered, apologizing. But the succubus said she didn't feel offended at all. On the contrary, she thought it was great talking to someone who also had never dated and had been single their whole life. Those words, despite their good intentions, hurt Chan a bit. He pretended not to care, changing the subject. He asked if she had to go to work. She looked at her watch and said yes, the bus would arrive soon. Before leaving, she sincerely thanked him for everything he had said. Chan replied that it was nothing, and he hoped he had actually helped. Driven by a gentle impulse, he picked up the small chocolate he had received from Chihuahua and gave it to her. He said it was to bring a little more lightness to her workplace. Perhaps with such a sweet treat, her day would become less stressful. Before leaving, the succubus thanked Chan for the conversation, but asked with a bit of hesitation if she could come back another day to talk to him again. It was already morning when the manager arrived at the store. She asked if Chan had actually allowed the succubus to return. Then she warned that this type of creature could easily develop an obsession which could cause trouble. Chan thought about it and secretly agreed. The manager emphasized that he needed to be more careful with such situations. Right after that, the manager mentioned that the little dragon girl also hadn't shown up that day. Chan replied that he knew, saying that the little girl still had a lot to prepare for the gift she wanted to make. In the middle of the conversation, they heard a loud noise outside, like metal crashing against the ground. Full of worry, they ran out to see what happened. In front of them saw a robot that had fallen with his bicycle. The manager quickly approached and asked if he was okay. The robot said yes and thanked her for caring. Despite making a loud noise when falling, the manager wanted to know what caused the accident, and the robot explained it was an unexpected situation. The pedals suddenly stopped working. Looking closer, Chan noticed the bicycle's chain had slipped off the gears. He explained that it probably happened because the chain was tangled, causing the pedals to stop working. Carefully, he bent down and put the chain back into place, fixing the bicycle. When he finished, he said it was ready. The manager and the robot were very impressed by Chan's skills. The manager commented he had a talent for this kind of thing, and Chan's a bit embarrassed, said he only knew how because he used to ride bikes frequently when he was a kid. The robot, very grateful, handed Chan a business card and said if he ever needed new service, he could call him. He introduced himself as an expert exterminating monstrous creatures and insisted that, out of gratitude, he would provide a service completely free of charge. Chan tried to politely decline, but the robot insisted, saying it was the least he could do. After waving goodbye, the robot left, pedaling away. The manager and then looked at Chan and told him he should go home and rest, because tomorrow would be very tough. She reminded him that tomorrow was Friday, the famous TGIF, and if he didn't rest well, then he would probably die of exhaustion while working. Chan sighed and agreed. Indeed, Friday was the worst day of the week for those working at the convenience store. That day was known as the craziest day of the week, when everyone let loose everything they had pent up over the past 5 days. And how did they do it? With alcohol, of course, and because of that, convenience stores were packed with customers, completely different from usual. By night, the store was jammed. A man was holding a soju model while another was sitting on the floor with bags of chips. There was also a person acting like Elvis Presley, singing loudly in a figure with giant wings dancing in the aisles. Chan, standing behind the counter, quietly observed everything and wondered why he ever took this job. Patiently, he picked up the soju bottle and a bag of chips and reminded them that even when drunk, customers must pay before consuming. People started apologizing and sorting themselves out until a familiar figure walked into the store asking for help. It was Appia, the woman who had crashed into him before. Chan was caught off guard but managed to hold her back for a moment. While other customers looked on in shock, she was saying something about finally becoming a swan. Chan, trying to stay calm, just politely asked her not to do that inside. However, before he could handle the situation, another loud noise. The store, a minotaur, suddenly appeared and charged in, using his horns to smash the glass door. A piece of the door was stuck to him as he looked around confused, asking where he was. He slowly stood up and looked at the ruins. The minotaur asked what he had just smashed this time. Completely stunned, Chan thought that he had just destroyed the store's entrance, secretly calling him a damn idiot. Bastard. Later, the manager called to check if Chan was still alive. Exhausted, he begged for help, but the manager said she couldn't even stand up anymore, as today was just as bad for her. She said a goblin had tried to split his payment across multiple cards, and meanwhile other customers had started fighting in line. She said the customers were especially weird tonight. Chan realized that she had also endured a long day like that, but unfortunately he would have to handle everything on his own right now. Even so, the manager asked if he was really okay because his voice sounded exhausted over the phone. Chan looked at the store's entrance where he had improvised a new cardboard door. When she asked if anything had happened, he replied yes, a minotaur completely destroyed the store's door. The manager got worried, asking if Chan was hurt by the broken glass. He said no, he was completely fine. He even commented that he got the minotaur's contact, who promised to compensate for the damage. In the meantime, he had to improvise a temporary solution to cover the store's entrance. Chan kept quiet for a few moments, thinking he was about to get scolded. He guessed the manager was furious as she was also staying silent. However, she only mentioned that there was a tool he could use. She said lately she had been thinking about it and would prepare the item as soon as possible. Tried to decline, saying he didn't need it. But the manager explained that every species in that world possessed some kind of magical power, some stronger, some weaker. Furthermore, everyone reacted differently to magic and had their own unique physical traits. For example, elves live very long and maintain a youthful appearance, while succubi are innately seductive, she explained. She explained that because of this, Chan was at risk after all. That world was completely different from where he came from. Luckily, he had an innate physical resistance to magic, but that didn't mean he was immune to extreme powers. That was why the tool would be an extra layer of protection, specially designed for him. A bit embarrassed, Chan accepted. He said he trusted her. The manager promised to prepare it as soon as possible and suggested he continue working as usual. Chan already knew she was a bit terrible. She was a good person, but in that moment he realized just how much she truly cared about him, even though he was just a part-time employee. He even thought about inviting her to dinner someday to thank her. Right after that, another customer approached. He asked for a pack of cigarettes behind the counter and also asked for help with something else when it was time to pay. Time to pay. Chan noticed a scar on the man's face, casually commented on it. Realizing what he had done, he quickly apologized, feeling a bit embarrassed. The man replied that it was okay. He said it was rare to see that kind of scar nowadays, and that curiosity was normal. He was a mature-looking kobold, and one of his ears looked like it was partially bitten off by something. Even so, he kept a gentle smile on his face. After paying, he asked if he could rest there for a while. Chan replied yes, of course. He thought this was the first polite and calm customer he had met during his shift at the store. The kobold stepped aside and started using his phone while Chan observed him. By the way he dressed, he seemed to be like an office worker, even though it was late at night. Chan was just guessing until the kobold called him back into the conversation, asking if he followed the stock market. Chan said no. The kobold explained that he didn't either. Actually, he was using his phone for another job. He revealed that he was a ride-sharing driver, more specifically a private driver out on the streets. The traffic was completely jammed at that time, which made him a bit anxious. Even so, the atmosphere in the store was quiet and Chan finally felt at peace. No new customers walked in and he began to enjoy that peaceful moment at work, but the peace didn't last. Long the kobold approached and showed him the map on his phone, asking if Chan knew where that location was. He replied no, since he had just started working at this store and didn't know well about this area. The kobold still thanked him and commented that he wasn't too familiar with the neighborhood either. Then he asked how Chan's experience was so far. Chan replied that everything was fine until the other day when a minotaur destroyed the glass and the door. The kobold now understood what happened when he opened the temporary door earlier. Suddenly, a loud noise from the street interrupted their conversation. A car accident had just occurred. It involved an unlucky kobold and two orcs who were in the middle of a nasty brawl, throwing insults at each other, arguing over who bought an illegal driver's license. Meanwhile, the other kobold, the victim of the accident, stood terrified next to the car. Many people stopped to see what was going on. Chan and the kobold in the store also watched in confusion. The fight escalated quickly. The two orcs rolling on the ground, one trying to choke the other. A passerby calmly commented as if it was normal, "Oh, orcs again," and wondered if that was really common in such a strange world. The kobold beside him also seemed uncomfortable and remarked that this surely wasn't good for business because it would likely be a bad thing. Driving customers away from the store, Chan agreed with the kobold, saying it was really bad for the store, but he couldn't do much. The battle between the orcs seemed endless and didn't help at all. At that moment, a werewolf started approaching and in a firm voice told the youngsters to stop that senseless fight immediately. He said, "It's good to see two orcs so full of energy, but it's time to end this mess." One of the orcs, annoyed, asked what that old wolf was doing here and told him not to meddle. Without saying another word, the werewolf focused power into his fist and threw a punch so strong that the first orc instantly fainted. The people around who were recording the fight were completely shocked by the scene. The second orc, in disbelief, said the other one was knocked out with just one punch. Then he charged the werewolf, but he easily dodged and with a vicious kick to his opponent's body and quickly took him down instantly. Then the werewolf called out to the kobold involved in the accident, who was still very shaky, and told him he could now call the police and his insurance company. The relieved kobold thanked him as the werewolf turned back to the hospital. Chan asked what he used to do before becoming a driver and what his species was. Exactly, he replied that he was a werewolf, but it was hard to tell because there was no full moon that night. He further explained that before working as a driver he did many things, but was now ready to go. Chan was very impressed. He thought this man was really cool and believed with those scars and the way he fought, he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Before the werewolf left, he thanked Chan for letting him rest a bit in the store. Chan, however, asked him to wait a moment. He asked if he had a business card or something similar, because there were many drunk customers showing up there. He said his services would be very useful, and besides, if he needed a private driver, he would like to call him. The werewolf felt honored and handed Chan a card. After he left, looked at the card, which seemed very ordinary, lacking any strange magic like he had seen before. He thought the werewolf really didn't look like a scammer. On the contrary, he was a reliable and very good person. Shortly after, another customer walked into the store. He was wearing a pair of Crocs and accompanied by a small dog. Upon seeing the animal, Chan warned him that pets were not allowed. Inside the store, the customer, who was a pufferfish, he insisted, saying his pet was very obedient, wouldn't cause trouble, and would keep quiet. He said it would only be for a moment, and after buying what he needed, he would leave. Chan, a bit reluctant, finally allowed it, but made it clear it would only be for a few minutes. While the pufferfish walked around the store, Chan received a message from the manager asking about the equipment she was developing for him. She wanted to know if he had any prefix requirements. Chan thought about it and replied yes, he wanted a giant and a squeegee to help clean up. The manager was surprised by this request but agreed. He added that he trusted her and would be grateful for whatever she made. A moment later, the pufferfish returned to the counter with a few bottles of beer and also asked for a pack of cigarettes. He tried to pay with a card. The payment was declined. The limit had been exceeded. The pufferfish said this was a problem because he didn't have another card with him and didn't bring his phone either. With no other choice, he declared the only way was to leave his small dog there with Chan and go home to get his card. He asked Chan to take care of the animal for a few minutes. Chan was stunned. He thought, is he really going to leave the dog with me? What kind of owner does that? It's weird. To entrust his pet to a complete stranger, however, the pufferfish acted very naturally, saying the dog was very well behaved, wouldn't bite, and calmly left. In no rush, Chan stared at the small dog for a few seconds, then bent down and petted. He said life must be hard having such an owner and commented that if the dog could talk, it would probably have a lot to complain about. At this point, the dog replied that actually it had something to say, it just didn't know if it should speak out loud. Chan stepped back in shock and froze. The dog casually asked if it was okay to talk to him like this still. Stunned, Chan asked if it could really talk. The dog confirmed as if it were the most normal thing in the world and asked if there was any problem with that. Still trying to process what was happening, Chan asked why it didn't say anything in front of its owner. If it had spoken up earlier, maybe all of this could have been avoided. The dog explained that it usually didn't talk, especially in front of its owner. The reason was its owner hated its voice, a very high-pitched voice, once he even threatened to surgically remove its vocal cords if it talked again. Chan thought that man was really terrible. While petting the dog, Chan asked its name and age. The dog introduced itself as Puppy and said it was 2 years old. Chan found it very mature for its age, but Puppy explained that this was very common for its species, as dogs mature very quickly. By dog years, it was already considered an adult. Chan admitted he didn't know much about dogs, but asked if Puppy had ever met another dog that could talk. Puppy said no. It explained that it saw other dogs happily barking beside their owners, but none talked to it, so it started thinking that maybe all dogs could talk, but chose to stay silent out of fear. Just like it, maybe they were also afraid of losing their voice. A bit insecure, Puppy asked if it was weird. Chan replied that he wasn't sure, since he didn't know much about dogs. However, he said that everyone loves dogs, and there are people who brought their pets traveling by plane. Puppy got excited thinking about it, saying it would love to do. Chan then asked if its owner treating it like that, like an object, was normal. Puppy seemed a bit hesitant. Instead, it didn't really like talking about it because it felt tired just thinking about it. Explained that its owner frequently argued with his wife over it, and whenever he drank, he acted weird. Strangely, even so, the man still fed it and gave it a place to sleep, so it just endured it. The translation was done by the subtitle team. However, the puppy admitted it had thought about leaving its owner, so Chan advised it to just talk frankly with him, but the puppy recalled the previous threat and asked again about the vocal cords. Chan explained that perhaps the owner said that because he didn't believe it could actually talk, though he admitted his attitude at that time was quite terrible. Running away from home would be a difficult choice because the life of a stray dog is very complicated, so the best way is to try talking to improve the relationship between them. The puppy liked this idea and said it could try, while Chan reminded it that the owner said he would return in 10 minutes. But a few hours had passed. The puppy confirmed this and said it was used to waiting a long time. Then it wanted to clarify one last doubt when asking what neutering was. Chan was startled by this question and didn't know how to react, so the puppy hurriedly explained that it had heard the owner discussing it with his wife and wanted to understand better. Chan immediately explained that in an era where many people keep pets indoors, neutering is a common procedure helping to prevent cancer tumors and for females breast and ovarian cancer. Many pet owners do so to keep their pets healthy. However, it is not mandatory. Some people prefer to let their dogs have puppies and start a family, considering it a choice born out of love. Hearing this, the puppy was horrified and said that it absolutely did not want to undergo that surgery. It would rather die than lose its 2 little balls. It began to wonder if it was being punished for some mistake, like stealing other dogs' food or peeing and pooping on the owner's bed. Chan tried to calm the dog down and said that it was not a punishment. When the puppy insisted he stop talking, it swore it would never let them take its balls. It immediately asked if Chan would accept neutering surgery if he were it, and Chan surprisingly replied that of course not. The puppy then said that was obvious because no one would want to go through such a terrible thing, and wondered if that was really its fate. It hadn't even found a mate yet. It always dreamed of starting a family, but now it felt that dream was over before it even began. Finally, Chan thought to himself that perhaps explaining what neutering wasn't a good idea. Chan gave the puppy some water because it looked like it was panicking a lot. The dog finished drinking, took a deep breath, and said it felt calmer. It apologized for making a fuss, but commented that finding out the meaning of neutering was still very scary. Chan suggested that now that it knew what it was, perhaps it just needed to tell the owner it didn't want to do it, and maybe he would understand. But the puppy explained that it was no longer necessary, because since the day it was born, it had never truly been happy with this relationship. And for that reason, it decided it was time to do what was right for its life. It said it wanted to be independent, go its own way, and cut ties with the owner forever, then thanked Chan for helping it make that decision. Chan surprisingly tried to convince it to reconsider and said they could talk a bit more, but the puppy firmly said there was no need. Even when Chan warned how hard life on the streets was, the puppy still replied that it would rather suffer outside than stay in that house, especially if someone dared to take away its peanuts, because for it right now, freedom was better than being chained to someone who didn't respect it, making Chan understand, and also think that decision was completely reasonable. That was a strong enough reason, so the puppy thanked him again and asked him to take off the collar, and as soon as the collar was removed, it said it finally felt free, while Chan asked if he could help with anything else. It immediately agreed, and before leaving it wanted him to help talk to the owner to say goodbye. Chan surprisingly asked if it really wanted to say goodbye to that man, and the puppy confirmed. It said that even though it wasn't a good relationship, the owner still deserved a goodbye. When the customer finally returned, he was shocked to see the puppy without its collar, and immediately asked what was going on. Chan calmly replied that the dog had something to say. The customer still didn't understand what was happening until it started to speak. It called the man owner but asked him not to answer as it had made its decision about whether he really went home to get his wallet or actually went to schedule a neutering surgery. From the customer's reaction, the puppy immediately got the answer for itself. It thanked him for that confirmation and declared that from this moment on, it would live its own life. Before leaving, it asked Chan if it could come back later. Chan agreed and told it that it could return whenever it wanted. The puppy sincerely thanked him and wished the store more and more prosperous business. Meanwhile, the customer trembled slightly. He began to cry, unable to fully comprehend the emotions surging within him, and a moment later, Chan was outside the store taking out the trash, softly commenting that everything was so clean and peaceful. He thought about the customer who had just rushed out to chase after his dog. Perhaps he truly felt guilty for what he had done, and perhaps he really loved the puppy. While he was engrossed in his thoughts, he stretched and suddenly noticed someone approaching. It was the little dragon girl, who just greeted him politely. A moment later, inside the store, Chan poured a small cup of water and looked around until he found the medicine he was looking for. He handed it to the little girl and told her to take the medicine with the water, while saying that if she drank it like a good girl, she would be rewarded with a small chocolate bar. But the little girl replied that she didn't want to, just as her nose suddenly sniffled. Then she said she didn't have money to buy the medicine. Chan thought to himself that this little girl was always good at coming up with all kinds of excuses, and immediately threatened that if she didn't take the medicine now, she would have to get an injection later. Hearing this, the little girl had to admit she had no other choice and obediently took the medicine. Chan then asked why she didn't come to make a gift for her mom last Friday. The dragon girl replied that she had a piano class that morning, just like every other Friday. He thought that showed the little girl was very responsible and an extremely dedicated child to her activities. The little girl added that she was sick today, so she wouldn't make a gift, because if she sneezed on the paper, she might burn everything, and today she just dropped by to say hello. She also commented that the convenience store sold all kinds of things, but since she didn't have much money, she had to save. Chan asked how much she planned to save, and the little girl explained that she wanted to save exactly 20,001 won. Chan calculated a bit and suddenly realized Mother's Day was very close. Even so, the little girl had started preparing quite early, showing she truly cared about the gift she would give her mom. But he didn't think it was right for a child to have to buy things from the store for that. So he decided she wouldn't have to pay, then grabbed 2 lollipops thinking that was enough. He gave her one as a reward for taking the medicine and asked how much money she had left. The little girl replied that she had exactly 501 won left. Chan said that was quite a coincidence, as these 2 lollipops cost exactly that much. He added that if she was free any day, she could always come back because the store had many kinds of candy at that price. Chan stood watching the little dragon girl, staring intently at the 2 lollipops she wanted to take. The little girl said that she wanted to pick these 2, but her eyes still showed hesitation, making Chan ask if she didn't like the flavor and suggested changing to another candy. However, the little girl only asked what Chan's favorite flavor was, and he replied that she didn't need to share the candy with him because it was hers. But the little girl explained that her mom always told her eating too many sweets could cause diabetes. Chan sighed when he heard that and thought to himself, now the problem was no longer cavities but diabetes. Despite that, the dragon girl still insisted that when sharing food with someone, the flavor would be even better. Chan didn't know how to refuse a child's kindness. Finally, the 2 of them shared the flavors, and even though he accepted, he still thought to himself that he was stealing food from a child, then wondered if all kids these days were like that, because compared to his childhood, the little girl was truly too innocent. He suddenly remembered what the manager had mentioned, that dragons were often very pure when they were young, and this very innocence made them prone to falling into dangerous situations. But Chan thought this little girl was quite smart, giving the feeling she wouldn't easily fall into the hands of those with bad intentions. Just then, the dragon girl asked if he lived nearby, and Chan replied that he lived just a 3-minute walk away. The little girl excitedly said that distance was really very close, and when Chan asked if she lived nearby, the little girl replied no, because she had to take the subway to get here. She explained she did that because her school and the homes of many friends were near the store, as well as her mom's workplace was around here. Chan then asked if she rode her bike here today, and the little girl confirmed. She pointed to a large building and said her mom worked there. The 2 walked out of the store together, and Chan was very surprised by the size of the company, secretly praising that this was indeed a massive corporation. He then asked if she liked her mom's job, and the dragon girl excitedly replied that she really liked it. She added that now she liked it even more, knowing Chan lived right nearby. That meant she could see him more often, and this made the little girl very happy. Chan chuckled softly and commented that actually he didn't plan to work here long term, and at that very moment, the dragon girl's expression completely changed as if her dreams had just shattered. Chan thought that this job was truly difficult, but at the same time it also brought unique experiences, as he had dealt with all kinds of magical creatures, or had to face bizarre challenges, and even gave relationship advice to a succubus. Even so, he knew he couldn't work at this convenience store forever, but he wondered if his honesty had made the little girl sad. So he gently patted the little girl's head, and told her not to be sad because he would stay here for a while longer and wouldn't leave right away. He told her that if she wanted to chat or needed anything, she could always come find him. He also warned that being near strange adults wasn't safe and reminded her that perhaps her mom had told her not to follow strangers. The dragon girl replied a bit sullenly that he was no ordinary stranger. He had helped her prepare her Mother's Day gift, given her medicine when she was sick, and even shared candy with her. Because of that, she always thought he was a wonderful adult. A while later, the manager finally arrived at the store, and as soon as she walked in, she noticed that the glass door was truly shattered and immediately commented that this must have been an extremely rough night. As a way to thank Chan for his effort, she showed him a new artifact she had prepared especially for him, a super-equipped phone. The manager explained that she had assembled this device at home herself and had completed the necessary connections. However, she looked exhausted, perhaps from staying up all night to finish it in time. She began explaining every function of the device, including a magical defense app and another incredibly special app, used to help repair objects like this broken door. It works like a camera, but when the button is pressed, this app will make time go backwards. Chan said he thought he understood, so the manager immediately suggested he test it. He opened the camera and aimed the lens at the door. Then asked if he just needed to press the button, right? And the manager agreed, but stressed he needed to stand completely still while using the app, because that was extremely important. Chan aimed the camera carefully, followed the instructions precisely, and pressed the button. As soon as he did, images began to appear before his eyes. Everything looked like it had just been recorded, even though there was actually no footage. He watched the scene reverse in time until it returned to the moment the door was still intact. He was completely amazed by that sight, and the manager immediately asked him to press another button. He complied. A massive magical power immediately materialized. A magic circle appeared and began reconstructing the glass door right before their eyes. The broken pieces moved and merged together miraculously and precisely. In just a moment, the door was fully restored as if it had never been damaged. Chan was speechless as he observed this incredible result. The manager checked everything and commented that it seemed everything was fine. Chan was still curious, so he asked what would happen if a person appeared in the recording. Would this magic affect their memories? The manager laughed and reassured him, saying that this magic had absolutely no effect on humans. Magic that alters memories hadn't been invented yet because that was an incredibly complex field. And he breathed a sigh of relief at the manager's explanation. She said spells capable of directly affecting many living beings were still being explored. The mages of this world had dedicated a lot to that field, but progress was still slow. She reassured Chan, telling him to rest assured and use this new phone, making him a bit flustered and hurriedly say thank you. Despite that, he still asked again if he was truly allowed to use it, and the manager firmly confirmed. In return, she had stayed up all night preparing this device for him, because for such a magical device to operate, it had to be registered with the Bureau of Magic, go through bureaucratic procedures, and receive official authorization. That was why it was not a common item that could easily be seen. Chan wanted to know if this type of phone was rare, and the manager explained it was, especially since it was equipped with an additional magic stone. That stone allowed the device to download magic formulas, but because the files were very heavy, it required a Wi-Fi connection to run smoothly. Full of admiration, Chan praised the manager's achievement and asked where she got the phone from. She said she had received it from an acquaintance quite a while ago and had even forgotten about it, but now she decided to upgrade the device and give it to Chan. When she asked if he had any other questions, he immediately took the chance to ask if dogs in this world could talk. After hearing the whole story about the puppy, the manager asked if it was like a spirit beast. Chan said if a spirit beast meant an animal with extraordinary powers, then perhaps it was, and the manager explained that in magical terms, animals with special abilities were all called spirit beasts, regardless of what that ability was. Some spirit beasts could understand human speech and even speak other languages, but they were very rare, and she commented it had been a long time since she saw a spirit beast that could speak fluently. A few spirit beasts had abilities related to the mind and intellect, while others used their powers instinctively, like a part of their bodies, and it was at this exact moment the manager revealed a concern. She was afraid the dog might return to the store, making Chan feel it was really strange, but the manager immediately explained. Such spirit beasts were extremely valuable and thus easily became targets for those with bad intentions. Someone might even try to sell it for a huge sum up to $1 billion, making Chan immediately think its former owner, the customer, must be deeply regretting it. And the manager believed the dog could be in danger, so Chan promised that if he saw the puppy again, he would warn it, while she told him to let her know and wished him a good evening. Back on his shift, Chan looked out the store's glass door as raindrops began to fall. He thought on days like this, customers would walk in with soaked shoes, meaning he'd have to mop the floor many times. Just then, a notification suddenly popped up on his new phone. It was a message from the manager, saying this device also had a built-in translator, and at the end of the message, she mentioned she was currently drinking beer and eating seafood. Chan smiled slightly, feeling that his boss was truly a very unique person. She had stayed up all night just to personally hand him that phone, even though he was just a regular employee. He wondered what he could buy for her when he received his first month's salary. At that very moment, a customer walked in and asked for the umbrella stand, but Chan was still distracted looking out the glass window. So the customer immediately complained that he wouldn't come inside unless Chan brought the umbrella stand out, prompting Chan to hurriedly grab the stand and put it in place. After that, the customer pointed at a soda can and asked if it tasted good. Chan replied that he didn't know, so the customer, kobold looking like a chihuahua named Charlie, started getting annoyed. Chan immediately tried to stay calm and muttered a spell in his head to restrain himself. He said this product was on a buy one get one free promotion, but Charlie retorted that he didn't need it. But Chan explained that even so, he wouldn't lose anything, making the customer immediately scoff, telling him that Chan could drink the other can then, but he replied that he couldn't drink in the store, especially alcohol. The customer found it very strange and asked if he had never drank while working, and Chan replied no because he saw no reason for an employee to do so. Even so, the kobold said that he still did it sometimes. He justified it by saying that because his boss made him work too much, even on weekends, drinking a little was the least he could do. A while later, flying above the store with her Pegasus, Yuna had arrived. As soon as she landed, she told the Pegasus to wait there and walked into the store, enthusiastically announcing her arrival, saying her little sister had come and asking how he had been lately. But no. When she noticed Chan's expression, she knew he was deep in thought, busy staring at the beer can he just received from Charlie. Yoonha approached suspiciously, asking out loud if he was drinking alcohol. Chan explained he wasn't, that he was just looking. The beer can was left by a customer and he was just reflecting, saying he was also very worried about that customer. Since Charlie looked fragile and exactly like a chihuahua, he worried he might get fired for drinking on the job, and Yoonha found his concern really amusing. She commented that it was a very special kind of thoughtfulness, then smiled. She said Chan truly had a knack for this kind of job, while Chan was surprised to see Yoonha caring so much about the customers. She shared she used to be very exhausted working here, and when asked, she confirmed she had actually worked at this very store. However, she said that experience didn't go very smoothly, as even though it was only for a short time, she learned a lot of things, including the fact that getting cursed at in the store happened more often than normal, especially when someone showed up with a half-eaten pack of cookies, claiming the product caused a stomachache and demanding a refund. She wasn't good at handling such situations. There was one time she almost lunged in to attack a customer, intending to beat him up. She recounted she only stopped because her sister held her back. So for Yoonha, that job brought her more trouble than actual value, so she ultimately decided to quit, prompting Chan to express he completely understood that feeling. Curious, he asked why she came here today, since obviously there was no delivery schedule, and Yoonha immediately revealed she came to ask for his help. When she brought out what she was holding in her hand, she left Chan completely shocked. She was holding a demonic core, literally speaking, a heart. When she asked if he could touch it, Chan immediately refused, saying whether it was dangerous or not, he would not lay a hand on that disgusting thing, even though she assured him that the core had been completely purified. He still didn't want to touch it, as he wanted to understand its origin first, so Yoonha explained there were creatures called demons appearing from spatial gates. This demonic core was like their heart, a mass of pure magical energy so powerful it was used as fuel, and she mentioned this item was related to a request from the manager. Chan wanted to know if it was sent by the manager, but Yoonha explained not exactly. He recalled the dragon scale he had purified earlier, and this time the manager requested a stuffed demon, so the purification was even more important. Because the previous purification was done so poorly, Yoonha no longer trusted that group. That was why she decided to ask for his help, as his magic-resistant constitution could react to the core just like how he did with the scale. Chan looked at the object suspiciously but finally gave in, saying he would touch it really fast. However, as soon as he touched the core, something terrible happened. A strange mist quickly spread throughout the store, forcing them to flee outside. The whole area was engulfed by that stench and smoke. Chan immediately complained that Yoonha had said this thing wasn't dangerous at all, while Yoonha realized something was terribly wrong with the core and instantly flew into a rage. She started yelling loudly, asking if those people from the company thought this was a joke. She declared she would wipe them all out, then stormed off to call the company to complain. Chan watched her back as she walked toward the corner, thinking to himself she was truly furious. That made total sense under the circumstances because the store was filled with an awful smell, making it impossible to welcome customers in that state. While he was wondering what to do, a figure suddenly approached. It was the cyborg riding the bike, the very person he had helped earlier. The cyborg recognized Chan and thanked him for still remembering him. Noticing the stifling atmosphere, the cyborg commented that this stench and smoke were clearly emitting from a demonic core undergoing purification, and asked if the store handled that kind of material. Chan answered vaguely, saying it was something like that. But he advised the cyborg to temporarily go to another store, as they couldn't serve him under these conditions. Meanwhile, Yoonha was still screaming into her phone, demanding compensation for the damages just caused, and threatened to destroy everything if she wasn't heard, full of frustration. She swung her fist hard against the wall, cracking a part of the structure. Then sighed and calmed down a bit, making Chan step forward to ask if she was okay. So Yoonha apologized and said she was really angry because the company kept insisting everything was done right when it clearly wasn't. Chan thought anyone could see how shady that company was. He asked about the chicken smell and the magical smoke enveloping the store, and Yoonha replied that companies were all closed on weekends, meaning they couldn't do anything at the moment. The cyborg, who had been observing everything, suddenly stepped forward and said he would handle this situation. He felt grateful for the help he received the other day when he had trouble with his bike, so he wanted to repay them. He assured them he was very good at handling unexpected situations and hoped they would leave it to him. Outside the store, Yoonha and Chan just stood watching the scene. She asked if that cyborg was a customer here, and Chan replied that he wasn't exactly a regular but had shown up before. One time he had a bike accident right in front of the store and they helped him. Yoonha commented that they had treated the cyborg very well, and at that exact moment, the cyborg was analyzing the demonic core he was holding in his hand. He began scanning the data rapidly and interfaced with the core as naturally as if it were something incredibly normal. Chan explained that he worked in exterminating creatures, which was why he was so confident. When a cyborg specializes in that kind of task, he becomes extremely reliable, and surprisingly, the cyborg suddenly unleashed a powerful surge of electricity into the core. The whole store lit up from the lightning flashing from that thing, leaving Chan and Yoonha deeply impressed. After that, the cyborg stepped back and declared the process was 100% complete. He handed back the purified core and said everything was now in her hands. She was extremely impressed and praised his skills, while Chan was still amazed by the electrical surge, so he quickly asked if the cyborg was okay, and he replied yes because this was standard procedure. When Chan asked about the color change of the core, the cyborg explained that this was exactly what would happen when the purification process was completed properly. The cyborg also suggested Yuna should stop doing business with the previous company. He discovered the prior purification process was only 80% complete, so if he hadn't acted in time, the core could have exploded within minutes. He also commented that many times this kind of procedure was done in illegal labs with absolutely no safety measures just to save money. Yunha suddenly flew into a rage. She said she wanted to ruin those people's faces. Even so, the cyborg said he could understand that feeling. Right after he revealed that his business had been quite bleak lately. There wasn't much demand for his kind of service, and his factory hadn't received a single client in the past month. He felt very disappointed about that, so Chan immediately tried to comfort him, saying he didn't need to worry because Yunha was considering hiring him, and she confirmed this, saying she was swamped with work and wanted a new partner. Then she asked if they could sign a contract. The cyborg immediately agreed and thanked them for this kind act, and a moment later, Yunha told him to get on the Pegasus, but before leaving, the cyborg turned back with a question. He commented that the previous purification was done in the store, but he didn't see any specialized equipment. He was curious to know how they did it, so he stood waiting for an answer, but Chan remained silent as he couldn't reveal his body had a magic-resistant constitution. That was when Yunha quickly replied, saying this was a secret and he shouldn't ask again, because it was a national secret. Later on, when they had left, Chan started working on repairing the cracked wall that Yunha had damaged earlier. While working, he thought to himself he would never have a peaceful day in this store. Right then, he received a message from her. She mentioned that she had gotten his number from the manager and thanked him immensely for everything he had done that day. She even praised his magic-resistant physique, stating that it was incredible. He began to wonder if Yuna was truly just a delivery girl. She spoke of monsters so naturally and possessed unusual strength. He didn't seem like an ordinary person. He questioned whether all delivery workers in this world were that strong. After some thought, he decided to ask her directly the next time they met. As he stretched his body, preparing to head back to the store, he thought to himself that luckily the chicken smell had completely faded away. Just then, he caught sight of a figure passing by and spoke up to ask if everything was all right. The person replied yes, but then recognized him, and remarked that he must be surprised by this sudden visit. She apologized for showing up while he was working, as she didn't want to bother him. It was the succubus, but this time she was dressed gorgeously, looking completely different from the usual appearance Chan was accustomed to. She explained that she went to a club with her colleagues today, but ended up getting ignored and ditched. No one stayed with her. Chan realized she looked truly different. He wondered to himself if this was what people called a woman's complete makeover. Nevertheless, he still asked for the reason why she came here. She stated that she could have just enjoyed the fun at the club by herself without relying on her friends, or perhaps used that moment to learn more about the love she was always seeking. Then the succubus told him that this was her first time visiting such a place. She recounted that she was dragged there by her seniors, and upon arriving she was left behind. She explained that she simply wanted to hang out normally with her friends, but they dragged her into that kind of environment instead. I'll see you next week then. When they arrived, she was left all alone, while she was still trying to grasp the situation. A man started bothering her, while her seniors were happily enjoying themselves like experienced succubi shortly after. A few other men also approached her, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. Chan thought to himself that it must have been really tough for the succubus. He asked if her seniors had given her any prior warning about the place. She replied yes, but they only mentioned vague things about the drinks and the atmosphere. Nothing truly helped her mentally prepare for it. He was too familiar with that kind of behavior, as his friends were exactly the same, always excited about partying and nightlife. Wanting to help, he advised her to try hanging out at a quieter, less crowded place. And then, the succubus mentioned that one of her seniors had introduced her to a dating app. Since it was her first time using it, she had no idea how it worked. Chan offered to take a look for her. He took her phone and commented that the first crucial thing was to have a beautiful profile picture. When it was time to take a photo, the succubus became tense again. She said that taking pictures made her nervous, that she wasn't photogenic and her makeup didn't look good either. Chan, to reassure her, immediately said that she was very beautiful, that today she looked even prettier than the last time he saw her, and all she needed to do was smile a little bit. Embarrassed, she finally managed to take a satisfactory photo. Afterward, he guided her to fill in her profile information. The app would automatically search for a suitable match. Once everything was completed, she pressed the button to search for a partner. The app displayed a potential candidate, an incubus just like her, sharing the same race. She showed the profile to Chan and asked what he thought about this guy. When Chan saw the picture, he felt disgusted. The man in the photo was covered in jewelry, wearing sunglasses, and had metal piercings on his face. Posing next to a woman, he also had a tattoo with bizarre symbols. Curious, Chan asked about the meaning of the tattoo, and she explained that it was written in a special language exclusively used between succubi and incubi, a few things representing true love. Despite that, Chan didn't like it at all. He took her phone and without hesitation, rejected all the options and deleted the app entirely. Surprised, the succubus asked why he did that. He then asked if could it be that the senior who introduced this app had a habit of playing pranks. She was taken aback and admitted yes. She recounted that this senior loved to tease and always said she looked adorable when angry. In fact, one of the seniors at the club was exactly this person. Chan concluded that the whole incident at the club was probably also a setup to mess with her. He decided to change the subject and asked what kind of person she wanted to meet. The succubus asked back why he was asking, and he replied that he wanted to help her find her other half. If she knew exactly the type she was looking for, it would be much easier to find someone like that. She began to think, imagining someone who understood her feelings, someone she could be close to. Comfortably conversing, someone who would listen and accept her true self. As she thought about it, she suddenly realized that perhaps that person was already right beside her. Perhaps that person was Chan Shi. She froze at that thought. Time passed and morning came. Chan was sweeping the sidewalk in front of the store. He thought about how the succubus suddenly got embarrassed and left without saying much. He wondered if he had said something wrong. He felt he wasn't good at dealing with romantic matters, especially since he had never dated anyone. Just the dragon girl appeared. Chan remarked that she brought paper with her this time, but before he could finish his sentence, she tripped and fell face first onto the ground. He hurriedly rushed over to help, affectionately calling her kiddo, as he helped her up and asked if she was okay. A rabbit woman approached, handed over some medicine, and confusedly asked if this was his daughter. He was stunned. The woman actually thought the little girl was his daughter. As the morning went by, other customers entered one after another, and one after another started saying similar things. One person praised his daughter for being so cute. Another found it heartwarming to see the father and daughter working together. Another found it heartwarming to see the father and daughter working together. An old man even commented on how adorable the image of a father working alongside his daughter was. Chan thought that, considering his age, it was understandable for people to misunderstand like that. Regardless, the dragon girl still received plenty of gifts. Chan pondered and figured it made sense for everyone to assume she was his daughter. Later on, the little girl apologized to him, saying that she was getting in the way of his work. But Chan replied that it actually wasn't the case. In fact, her presence even helped boost the sales. Today was Monday. And according to him, many people suffered from what was called Monday syndrome, the fatigue that made adults feel heavy and sluggish on the first day of the week. However, upon seeing the dragon girl there, everyone's mood improved. When she smiled and waved, the effect was even more wonderful. The dragon girl firmly replied that yes, she would work hard. Chan thanked her for her effort and said he would put all the things she brought into a bag. While he was doing that, a new customer walked into the store. Asking for hangover medicine, Chan quickly confirmed and went to look for the item she needed. During the search for the product, the customer noticed the dragon girl and was completely melted by her cuteness as the little girl innocently waved hello. The woman almost couldn't handle the overwhelming adorableness. She praised this child as precious and said her heart felt like melting upon seeing the sight. She referred to her as Chan's daughter, praising her for being incredibly cute. After grabbing her items, she bid the dragon girl farewell again, stating that she felt much better thanks to her. She promised to return soon, and Chan politely replied, inviting her to drop by anytime. Right then, Chan thought about how the little girl had truly lifted everyone's spirits. Her impact on the store was simply astounding. Therefore, he suggested that perhaps it was time to start making the gift for her mother. Since she had brought the materials, they could lay everything out on the table. He proposed starting with the card's background and asked for her opinion. The dragon girl eagerly replied that she wanted a flower field with a blue sky. Chan agreed and told her she could draw it on the paper, ready to help if she needed it. While the little girl was focusing on drawing, another customer entered. It was an orange cat, and Chan, familiar with this type of customer, thought to himself that the guy looked like the sort who always caused trouble. The cat asked to buy some snacks, and Chan directed him to the right section. The atmosphere in the store today was so peaceful that Chan suspected the dragon girl's presence was making things go smoother. Suddenly, she seemed to notice something strange. She told Chan that there was something wrong with that cat. He confusedly asked if she was talking about the black shirt the customer was wearing, but the little girl replied that wasn't it. It was as if a dark shadow surrounded his heart, something gloomy like a bad energy source. Chan asked if she meant that the customer was a bad person. She confirmed, explaining that whenever that darkness appeared, it meant the person was about to do something terrible. Chan asked how she knew that. The dragon girl explained that she had observed many people and learned from what she saw. He thought to himself that she was truly special. Even though he didn't notice anything suspicious, he suddenly recalled the manager's words that dragons could see the magic surrounding people. Thinking so, he decided to trust her. He told her to wait there for a moment, grabbed the mop, approached the cat pretending to mop the floor nearby. While doing so, he remained vigilant against any suspicious movements, wondering if this customer was truly planning to do something bad. Imagining that the cat might steal something, if that happened, he was ready to use his mop of justice. But the cat just went to the counter and picked out an item, stating that he was going to pay. Chan was confused, thinking that perhaps this customer truly had no ill intentions. However, he still stayed alert, wondering if the cat would suddenly pull out a weapon or do something drastic. Right then, he noticed something odd about the wallet the cat was holding. Suspecting it might be a magical item, Chan grabbed the customer's hand and spoke up to apologize, stating that he needed to inspect the wallet and it would only take a moment. The cat became nervous and flustered, asking why he wanted to do that. Chan remained firm, suspecting it was similar to the magical identity of the vampire he had seen before. The energy emitting from that wallet seemed very unusual. The customer started complaining, telling Chan to let go and calling him crazy. Chan kept his cool and tried to cover it up. saying that he just found the wallet beautiful and wanted to buy a similar one. He asked if he could take a closer look. The cat refused, threatening to call the police. Chan said there was no need for that, he merely wanted to take a quick glance. Then the dragon girl intervened with her cuteness. She gently asked to see the wallet, saying she was also very curious. The cat let his guard down in the face of such adorableness, becoming flustered and eventually dropping the wallet. Chan seized the opportunity and quickly picked up the wallet. The moment he touched the wallet, Chan felt a strange, turbulent energy. Startled, he immediately let go of it. At the same time, the wallet began to glow intensely and swelled up like an air mattress. The cat panicked, not understanding what was happening. A blinding light engulfed the store, and Chan hugged the dragon girl tightly to protect her. As the light faded, he noticed countless store items scattered all over the place. He began to understand what had occurred. The cat had used the magical wallet to hide merchandise in an attempt to intentionally steal. Chan told the dragon girl to stand by and picked up his trusty mop of justice. He walked over to the cat and directly confronted him, stating that if he left the store right now, he wouldn't be punished, but if he stubbornly stayed, he would get a taste of the infamous mop. Terrified to the core, the cat dashed out of the store. Chan sighed, already thinking about having to clean up this mess again. Just then, the dragon girl worriedly approached and asked if he was okay. Chan replied that he was fine and asked if she got hurt during the chaos. She shook her head, stating she was perfectly fine. That relieved Chan, who sincerely thanked her for her help. He said thanks to her, the store wasn't robbed. However, the dragon girl replied that he was the one who defeated the bad thief. Right then, the manager appeared and Chan turned around, surprised since he hadn't noticed her earlier. He called her boss and she demanded him to explain the situation. After he recounted everything that had happened, the manager asked if all the stolen items were inside that magical wallet. Chan wasn't sure but said he didn't know how the customer stuffed everything in there, and since when, he wondered if it was some sort of teleportation magic linked to the wallet. The manager analyzed the situation and concluded that the wallet was indeed a magical tool, equipped with teleportation and spatial expansion spells. She remarked that fortunately the magical security system had glitched, helping them discover the theft. Then she asked how Chan figured it all out. He replied that it was thanks to the dragon girl. The manager walked over to the little girl, acknowledging that she was truly special and warmly thanking her, but just then, the dragon girl hid behind Chan's back, which broke the manager's heart. She tried to reassure her, saying she wasn't a bad person seeing this. He tried to lighten the mood and told his boss not to be sad. Shortly after, he reminded the dragon girl that it was time for school. He promised to gather all the materials as well as the gifts she received so they could finish her mother's present next time. The dragon girl happily agreed, dressed neatly, and waved goodbye. Everyone wished her a safe trip as soon as she was out of sight. The manager asked Chan if he was able to handle the wallet due to his magic-resistant physique. Chan confirmed, stating that as soon as he saw the wallet, he sensed the magical instability surrounding it. That alone was enough to realize something was wrong. The manager noted that his magic-resistant physique seemed to be evolving. She compared it to mages who became stronger the more they used magic. Perhaps Chan's physique operated in a similar manner, growing stronger as he delved deeper into this magical world. She mentioned they could discuss this further later, but first, she needed to deal with the thief incident. Chan wondered how she planned to do that, since the thief must have run far away by now. But then to his surprise, Officer Irul, the elf policewoman from Ains, appeared. She came to the store to gather more information about the incident. The officer began collecting details of what had transpired. The theft occurred in the morning, and the stolen items were mainly necessities like snacks and cookies. All were stored inside the wallet with magical space. The manager confirmed everything and pointed at Chan, stating that the case was only resolved thanks to him. She praised him for being amazing. Officer Ruel agreed as well, saying he was an outstanding employee. Right after, Irul went into the security room to check the cameras. Before going with her, the manager told Chan to call if he needed anything. Just then, he received a notification on his phone. Yunha, who had transferred an amount of money to Chan to thank him for helping her purify the demonic core. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Chan apologized to the manager for acting on his own without prior notice, but she reassured him, saying it was fine. Everyone in the store needed to help each other. However, she still warned him, if Chan decided to quit or do something else, she wanted to know in advance. She explained that she used to hire other part-timers, but things never worked out, and if he quit now, running the store would face major issues. Accompanied by a faint smile, Chan replied that he had no intention of going anywhere. He stated that even if he wanted to do something else in this world, he wouldn't know where to start. The only thing he could do was work at this convenience store, and honestly, he liked it. He really enjoyed working with her. It was fun and good for him. He assured her he would stay. The manager blushed slightly at those words, but was very pleased. She said it was good that he kept his promise. Chan confirmed and thanked her for her trust. She then brought up that they needed to come up with a strategy to handle the growth of his magic-resistant physique. At that, right then, Officer Irul stepped out of the security room. The manager asked if she had gathered everything she needed. Irul confirmed and thanked them for their cooperation. She stated they had narrowed down a few suspects and the investigation would proceed swiftly. Then she spoke directly to Chan since he was present at the store when the incident happened. She mentioned that, according to the camera footage, the wallet used in the theft was imbued with magic. However, after the incident, all the magical energy had vanished. She noticed Chan was the one who touched the wallet right before that occurred and wanted to know if it had anything to do with it. Chan hesitated. He wondered if he should reveal his magic-resistant physique and then said he would explain. The manager emphasized that no one was allowed to lie, and Chan, not knowing what to say, ended up explaining that when he touched the wallet, it suddenly exploded. The officer repeated the statement in surprise, asking if he really just touched it and it exploded. Chan replied that he wasn't entirely sure since he didn't know much about magic. He merely felt something suspicious and instinctively touched the wallet. The manager then suggested that it might have been a dispelling charm. She explained that illegal tools sometimes had such magical security setups. Hearing that, the officer asked if she was a mage, and the manager admitted it, offering to explain in more detail if needed. But the officer thanked her for her cooperation and asked if they needed to add anything else. Chan shook his head, but the manager enthusiastically raised her hand. She asked the officer if she slept well. The officer casually replied that she slept about 30 minutes a day. That made Chan wonder if that was really okay. However, the manager immediately remarked that driving with such little sleep was highly dangerous. She said next time the officer dropped by the store, she would give her a sleeping potion. The officer thanked her for her concern but said it was slightly against regulations. Even so, the manager remained insistent and offered to sell 3 bottles for 30,000, stating she was genuinely worried for the officer's health. She cast a quick glance at Chan, who also spoke up in support of the idea, stating that he had personally tested the potion. The strawberry's flavor was delicious, and he fell asleep instantly after drinking it. The officer finally gave in and promised to give it a try once the investigation concluded. As she left in her police car, Chan asked what would have happened if he told the whole truth. The manager replied that she probably would have advised him to become a police officer too, because there were people possessing magic-resistant physiques not only in the police force but also in the military and special task forces. She remarked that besides, the officer spoke of regulations and professional conduct. She seemed very dedicated. Perhaps she was afraid of making mistakes, which could also explain why she only slept 30 minutes a day. She emphasized it was just speculation, but the officer might be under immense pressure at work. Chan became thoughtful. Recalling the past, he reflected that since the war, elves had been persecuted for a long time. Right then, an elf bumped into a kobold, and the two started arguing. The elf claimed the kobold did it on purpose and threatened to call the police. Chan wondered if elves were discriminated against because of actions that others deemed eccentric. But then the manager received a message from Yunha, saying she would drop by tonight. Chan asked if there was something to be done. But the manager explained that, actually, she had spoken to Yunha's older sister about Chan's magic-resistant physique. Her sister said there was a good method to handle this, but the manager was still somewhat hesitant. She thought it best for Chan to just hear what she had to say. That very evening, Yunha appeared at the counter and suggested Chan take the exam to get a magic-resistance certificate, assuring that he would pass on the first try and it would bring plenty of benefits. She said all he needed to do was try. Chan was confused, asking what exactly that certificate was. Over the phone, the manager explained it was a national certificate, allowing a person to work in magic-related fields. Despite that, Chan asked if someone from another world could take that exam when he himself didn't belong to this place. The manager replied she would take care of that part. He asked what she planned to do, and she said she would do her best to arrange everything. The only thing he needed to do was relax. Chan immediately asked if Yuna knew he came from another world. The manager answered no, and it was better to keep this a secret. That was the reason she had told Yunha that Chan hailed from a very distant desert land. Chan decided to speak to Yunha directly. As he approached, she asked if he had understood everything. He replied that he understood and thanked her for waiting. Yunha stated that from this moment on they could speak honestly. She explained Chan shouldn't hide his physique. Even though magic resistance wasn't rare, his case was highly unique. He could nullify magic, purify all things, and sense what others couldn't. She told him that she and her sister had met with experts operating in the field of magic resistance. Chan asked if that meant his physique was being researched. Yunha suggested he think carefully because he was very special. She said others would eventually find out anyway, and he could help a lot of people with this ability. He wanted to know if that certificate would solve all the troubles. The officer replied yes, and the manager explained that Chan was working a part-time job. She stated that if people knew he possessed a magic-resistant physique, they would likely start demanding his presence constantly, which would ultimately interfere with her business. However, with a certificate, he could operate as a professional in the industry, which would prevent those issues from arising. After all, that certificate served as a special license, allowing him to take on 2 roles simultaneously, as long as one of them involved his magic resistance ability. Chan thought this idea was great. Yunha agreed, but mentioned there was a minor issue. According to the manager, any race could take the exam as long as they were natives of this world. Yunha then asked where exactly the problem lay, and that was when Chan paused. He knew all too well that was the exact problem. He had come from another world and didn't even know of this place's existence until recently. He had never left the store where he worked, and if he took this exam, it would be his first true step into this world. He would have to find transportation to get to the exam location, and on top of that, he would be taking the exam alongside races he didn't even know existed until recently. He felt like a complete stranger in that world. Even if he luckily obtained the certificate, he also wouldn't know what to do next. The doubt about whether he could pass continuously grew. Sensing his hesitation, Yunha explained that the manager had been extremely worried about him from the very beginning. She said the manager always talked about Chan, especially in the mornings, and seems more concerned than ever.